So swarm season is about to start. In Atlanta, it can start as early as the end of February, but generally we first start seeing swarms in March. Swarm season can go on all the way through June, but the majority of swarm season here is in March and April. So it's time to teach you all how to catch a swarm. So I thought I would do this PowerPoint presentation as my beekeeping tip for this particular week, since so many people need to know how to catch a swarm. So this is what a swarm looks like. What happens when a hive swarms is the colony splits in half, and the queen leaves with half of the hive. The half she takes, 75% of the bees that go with her are young bees under 17 days old who are capable of making wax. So that's a very important piece of being able to land somewhere and make a hive work, is to be able to have them exude wax and make honeycomb as fast as possible. And swarms come in all kinds of different forms. The queen usually flies about 100 yards from her hive and lands somewhere, and the bees gather around her. It's not the queen's choice to leave. The bees in the hive push her out the door. They spend a few days ahead of time running her around the hive and getting her, not feeding her as well, getting her a little bit skinny because she doesn't usually fly. So she has to be able to fly to swarm. And then on the day they're ready to swarm, and the workers are who make this decision, they push the queen out the door and she goes with the half of the hive that she's taking with her. And then they land somewhere, the queen does, and all the bees gather around her and become what's called a swarm. So a swarm can be like this, it can be like that, it can be way up in a tree, high on a branch. These are all different swarms that I've caught. Some of them these days, now that I'm older, I prefer the kind that I don't have to stand on a ladder. So those that are in an azalea bush is much happier for me. And this is a swarm that I caught at a friend's house hanging off of a tree of theirs. But swarms come in all kinds of shapes and sizes. Some locations for swarms are very difficult. This is a swarm on a chain link fence, which is really hard because you can't shake it. You have to either hold a frame of comb and let the bees walk onto the comb, or you brush them into the container that you have, and they're going to be on both sides of the fence. So you have to be able to access the other side as well. And typically some of the things that you do to catch a swarm, you can't do with this kind of swarm, and I'll explain that in a minute. I also caught this swarm, which was on an I-beam down near the Atlanta airport. Had to climb up a really high ladder, got the whole swarm into a box, and left it to collect the rest of the bees while I drove home to get whatever it was I needed. And when I got back, the bees had gone all the way back up onto the I-beam because I had not gotten the queen. And it's very hard to get a queen in a swarm like this because it's so hard to get the swarm to go all at once into a collection box. So the most important rule that most Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts know, the most important rule is be prepared. And the best thing you can do, and the way to make your swarm catching the most successful, is to be prepared. So I keep a kit in my car starting about the beginning of March. I have in the back of my car everything I need to catch a swarm, so that if I get a call, I can drop everything and go right that minute, which is what I want to be able to do. So what do you have in the kit in your car? Well, you need your veil. Typically, bees don't sting in a swarm, but it'll give you a little more confidence, and it will keep bees from flying up inside your veil. It's not true that they never sting. You need a light colored sheet. White is good, but I don't happen to have a white one, so I use a white one with some flowers printed on it. It helps to have a spray bottle filled with sugar water, meaning half and half sugar water. You need a container to take the swarm home in. Really helps to have a bee brush. It also helps to have some kind of scoop. You can make a scoop out of a milk carton and cut the top off, but you can still have the handle available to you so you can scoop with it. It also helps to have a way to secure the bees in the container. You need some sort of top for your container. You need a bungee cord or some kind of strap to wrap around it so that you can secure the bees in your car in the container as you leave. You need a step ladder. I do take, even though I don't climb ladders anymore, I do take a Rubbermaid stool with me, but many people climb ladders. One of my friends, his wife gave him a bucket truck for his birthday so that he can catch swarms that way. You need a frame of old comb if you have it, or just a piece of old comb. The bees want to go in, they are happy to stay in a collection box if the box feels like home, and it's going to feel like home if it smells like home, and it's going to smell like home if you have honeycomb. It helps to take plant clippers. Those are great for snipping off branches if you need to in order to get to the swarm. You need water for you to drink. It always you should have a way to take a picture of the swarm to record the event. Swarm lure is helpful to put in your collection box. You can use Lemon Pledge, or you can go and look at my swarm lure recipe, which is on my YouTube channel and on my blog. You need the phone number of the person who called about the swarm so that you can check in with them either to get better directions or to let them know that you're there when you get to the place. So you arrive at the site and you assess the situation. Now here's a swarm on an azalea bush, and I arrive at the site. The first thing I do is spread my white sheet under the swarm. The reason you do this is so that if you move the swarm into the collection box that you've brought to collect it in, and any bees fall on the ground, including maybe the queen, you'll be able to see them on a white sheet. You'll also be able to collect them on a white sheet, where if they fall into grass and leaves, you're not going to be able to pick them up as easily. So in this case, this was a number of years ago. I'm using an old cardboard box. I've taped number 8 hardware cloth on the handle ends of the box so that the bees can't leave through the handles. So that's what that is. But anything you can use for a collection box, it needs to be about the size of a Deep Hive box. So an Office Depot box like that is a good one. I have now something called a hive minder, I believe is what it's called, that I bought at one of the bee shows. And it's great because it has a ventilated top. Take a photo of the swarm before you do anything at all. You'll want to remember it, especially if it's your first swarm. But I take a picture and record every swarm I catch. I'll lay the sheet out under the swarm as best you can. Sometimes it's not as ideal as this setting. Like, for example, the hurricane fence I showed you a while ago, there's no way to lay a complete white sheet under that because the fence is in the way. So it helps to have an extra one so you can put a sheet on either side. Then determine where to put your collection box. The collection box should go under the swarm as best possible. Now, if you can get close to the swarm, spray it with sugar syrup. The sugar syrup distracts the bees and it gives them something to do. They can lick it off of each other while you're in the process of collecting them. And then you collect the swarm. So you shake or seduce it into the nuke box. You cut the branch and take it and put it in the box, or you take the swarm home as a whole by, like I said, cutting it. And then you have to wait because all the bees are not going to go into the collection box when you do whatever you do to get the swarm in the box. You need to wait because there are other bees that are going to be circling around and they will smell the fact that their mother is in the box, and they smell the way that their mother is in the box by what this bee is doing in this picture. She has her butt up in the air and there's a gland opened at this end, and she emits a smell called nasonoph. And the nasonoph smell says to the other bees, Mom is in this box. Come here. And often right at the entrance that you leave on your box, the opening that you leave when you put the top on, bees will be, a lot of them will be in that section with their butts in the air. But it's called the come hither gland. So I have a video of a swarm that I caught during the pandemic that I'm going to show you right now. Okay, this is without a doubt going to be the world's easiest swarm to catch, but I want you all to get to see how to do it. So the first thing that happens when you're going to catch a swarm is that you want to put a sheet under the swarm so that should the queen happen to fall on the ground, you'll be able to see her on the sheet. There's also a huge ant hill right by the steps that I'm on. The second thing I'm going to do is put a box under the swarm to catch the swarm. This is the box. It has a piece of old comb in it to help them feel at home. And more than likely, what I'm going to do with this swarm is just cut the branch and drop the whole thing down into the box. Okay, this is just a beautiful swarm because of the way it is. I'm hanging it low like this. A little odd because it's on this hill. It's quite a hill. But we're going to do our best. So I'm going to come from this side and try to cut off the ends of these branches with my lapper so that I can drop the whole thing into the
and got the whole thing into the box. So now what I'm going to do is just shake the whole thing. I think I'm not going to try cutting it off. I'm just going to shake it into the box. So you ready? Here we go. 1, 2, 3. There they all go. And now we put the top on the box with an opening at the side over here so that the bees can crawl in. They can sit.
I'm going to pause this to tell you that that's called a ventilated hive top. You can buy those at Dadant and Man Lake and all the big bee companies. And it's sometimes useful if you live somewhere very hot like Atlanta in the summer to use as a hive top instead of your inner cover, to use this screened inner cover. But the bees tend to propolis the screen. So the best use I've found for the ventilated hive top is for this, to put it over a swarm collection box. But you'll notice that there's a little opening right here, and this keeps the main part of the swarm in the box, but this little opening allows bees to come in.
The function of the sheet, bees that have fallen down here that will make their way up in the box in the end. Because the queen, I'm pretty sure there's no way the queen isn't in there. So what will happen is the bees will start realizing the queen is in there and start crawling up. Now watch this bee. She's crawling up. This one too, because they realize mom is inside and that's where they want to be. You can, if you want to see how they look in the box, I just shook the whole thing in and there they are. One nice thing about collected swarms is you rarely get stung because the bees are not protecting their home. They're just in the mood to find a place to live and get going. But we have to wait a while to make sure that all the ones that need to go in with mama do go in with mama. So that's what we're going to do. It's not very warm today. It's a very cool Monday morning. But this opening right here will allow the bees to come in once they realize. These down here on the ground are kind of shy. But they're like, what happened? Their whole world just got flipped from being on the branch to being in this box. And they'll figure it out in a minute, but it takes them a while. It may take a long while for them to decide that they're all going to go. Really, at this point, I could just leave, but I don't want to leave these bees that are down on the ground unclaimed by their mama. And you do rarely get stung, but one bee just crawled up my pants leg and stung me on the knee. In a few minutes, you'll see more bees doing what this bee has her butt up in the air, and that bee has her butt up in the air, and they're doing that to send out a pheromone saying, Mama's in this box, Mama's in this box, come here, instead of up on the branch. And so that's where they're going to be inclined to go, is to go in where their mother is. Now, when you catch a swarm, you don't take 100% of the bees because some bees, it's morning, it's about 9 o'clock in the morning. Some bees have already gone out scouting, and those bees will come back to find that their mama's gone, and unfortunately, that what'll happen is they'll die. See these bees that are circling around? Let me see if you can see these. See, there are a few bees circling around where the branch was, and they probably were out scouting and have come back and are discovering that the cluster is not there. And then they'll start smelling, and the pheromone that these guys are sending up with their butts in the air will tell them, oh, mom's up here. So most swarms are not this easy, where you just jump the branch in and you're done. A lot of times I've collected swarms off of metal chain link fences that are just impossible because the bees, you can't shake the fence. It's great if you have something like this where the swarm is really, really low to the ground and you can shake it. We often measure swarms in terms of the size of the number of cats that they would equal. And this one looked like it was going to be a 4-cat swarm. But it's actually about what I would call a 1-cat swarm, because it was about the size of 1 cat, which is a great swarm. It's going to be just fine. I'm going to see if I can convince these girls to go into my bucket here and dump them in the box. It still is kind of funny. So in just a second, we're going to call this a day because we clearly got everybody we were supposed to get. I'm gonna give them a little while to decide that the tree is not where they need to be. Give these swirling around ones time to get into the box. Then what we'll do is strap the box up, put it in my car, and go and install it in a beehive. It's a very calm little group. I have to say that I usually don't get stung, and I've gotten stung twice. I got stung on my knee and stung on my finger when I was cutting off, when I was shaking the branch. Okay, so I'm going to call it a day. Sometimes you have to wait an hour, but this is not a wait an hour hive. I'm going to turn this over and go knock those bees down. Put this top down. Actually, I need to put it the other way to keep them in there. Get the box of bees. Get the box of bees. I'm going to tighten this bungee cord around it. That'll be enough to hold it closed while I go. There's still some space they can get out. And they may get out in my car. That sometimes happens. But bees don't bother you while you're driving, as long as you're driving. If you stop driving, they can bother you.
So that was a demonstration of how to catch a swarm. I have a whole playlist on my YouTube channel of swarms that I've caught, so you can go look at all the different ways. I have not in a number of years caught swarms that were high in trees, but they're also, it's pretty much the same idea as just you're climbing up on a ladder. And anytime you climb up on a ladder, what you have to remember is that if you shake a swarm from the top of a ladder, you do have to carry the box back down the ladder. So be prepared for that too. The video we just watched is one I did for our mentor time before our regular meeting at my Metro Atlanta Beekeepers Club. I didn't show everything that you need to know to get a swarm, so I really encourage you to watch my other videos. There are other things you can do and other containers you can take. I imagine some of you have those little plastic nuke boxes that hold 5 frames or 6. And are a good way to carry a swarm if it's a small enough swarm. Most swarms actually will fit into that nuke box, but many swarms need a little bit bigger space, which is why I use the hive minder that I use most of the time. But I do often have that little plastic nuke box with me. The other thing that you can do is take frames of drawn comb and hold the frame of drawn comb under the swarm, and bees will crawl right onto it because they love the smell of the comb. So then you just put those into the container that you brought and carry them home and move them straight into the hive. So that's a pretty easy way to do it too. I caught a swarm on a mailbox once, and that was the only way to get the swarm off of the mailbox. And I got a swarm off of a picnic table at Emory University, and it was a metal picnic table, so there was no way to get to the swarm very easily, and I used frames of drawn comb for that one as well. So there's so many ways to do it. Be sure and look at the rest of my videos on the playlist to help you figure out the multiple ways that you can get a swarm. And thanks for watching.